Right, staying now with the issues surrounding education. Early childhood education experts say the COVID-19 pandemic has presented a chance to completely redesign the education system. Since the start of the pandemic, e-learning has been taking over. Executive Head at Rallim Preparatory School, Colleen Miller, joins us now for more. Thank you very much, Colleen, for your time this afternoon. So you're of the opinion that the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent lockdown created the perfect opportunity to redesign our education system. So how so? Tell us a bit more about your vision.
So, Annalie, I think that what it's done is it's kicked us kicking and screaming into the 21st century in terms of being able to adapt and pivot quite quickly. And I think technology as a whole has allowed us to do that. We're quite at Rallim Prep, we're quite a tech-biased school, so it allowed us to make that change and be adaptable quite quickly. But I think what it is, it's an understanding that the traditional model, which is based on a century past, as we all know, which produces mass sort of standardization, mass control, mass uniformity, no longer applies in terms of the world in which we live. The fourth industrial revolution is literally changing the way in which we live, work, and relate to one another. And schools, as they currently exist, are not preparing our students for that type of world. And certainly this pandemic has shown that. And so it's left a lot of schools reeling in terms of trying to address the skills that are needed. So the 21st century skills like critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, communication and collaboration, negotiation, all those skills which will leave students or graduates flexible and adaptive, because they're going to have to be. They're going to be working any place, anytime, anywhere. And the current system as it exists does not produce that type of graduate or student.
Colleen, we have many great successful schools in South Africa, but we also have many schools with pit toilets, without water, with crumbling buildings, with poorly trained, overworked and poorly compensated teachers. Is it even realistic to expect that we would be able to implement a modern, progressive education system when we've been completely unable to provide or uphold the most basic quality of education?
I think what one has to look at, obviously, as an overarching view, is we have to look at policy first and foremost, okay? Policy to provide an environment in which technology, for example, can be embraced, and those critical thinking skills in terms of the approaches. And I think they need a relooking at the curriculum as it currently exists to incorporate those 21st century skills, and then to look at the resources that need to be provided, and then obviously the teacher training, which is key, because obviously we're aware that the department is doing a mass digital rollout, and that's fantastic, but it's going beyond that. It's also the teacher training, so there's a confidence to utilize the technology at hand. And to go further with that, and I think that there has to be a partnership, and look at a partnership between industry and education, okay? In terms of perhaps assisting, if you look at, say, a lot of families, majority have a cell phone, so that allows for mobile learning. So one could enter into partnerships with service providers to reduce data costs, for example. You can look at industry to assist with things like AI, to have share income agreements with students to take them through. And you could have things like video conferencing with master teachers in better resource schools to help those schools that are struggling, like the ones that you suggested, so that it becomes available. In terms of, so technology, I know can seem like enhancing the disparity that exists, but it can also be utilized to make learning across the board more accessible. But it needs very much a holistic approach and an overarching view in terms of heading in that direction. And I believe it needs to be a strong partnership between industry and education in order to realize that, say, in public schools that are under-resourced.
So the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown has highlighted a lot of inequalities, both in society and in education in South Africa. And you're saying it's the perfect time to look at redesigning our education system. But we are so vastly under-resourced because of the economic impact of COVID-19, especially on government schools. How would you bring those two difficult situations together?
Once again, I think you have to have that assistance from industry working with the department to address it, so that the inequalities that exist in that respect are addressed, so that you can provide the necessary tools in terms of cost factors and financing, etc. I think that you can have internships, you can have sponsorships, you can have the service providers, as I was saying, and the income share agreements will certainly assist in that regard. But it requires a targeted approach in terms of addressing it.
That all sounds very nice as well, but for industry, they want something out of the deal at the end of the day. What do they get?
Well, I think that they are getting future employees, because obviously you enter into a share income agreement with them, for example, or the internships. So it's going to assist in that regard. In terms of the social development component of companies, and we all know that they have that as part of their program, it assists them in that regard. And plus, it's obviously providing scarce skills in industry as a whole as well, depending what area we're looking at. So I do think it's reciprocal and a mutual relationship that can be fostered.
All right, thank you very much for your insights. That was Colleen Miller, Executive Head at Rallim Preparatory School. The issue of education likely to continue being a very contentious topic.